Well, this has to sting, right? Look at this. We caught them taking down the All-Star Game sign at Truist Park today, just hours before they made the announcement in Denver. MLB had already been scoping out Denver as a potential All-Star site even before all of this went down with the voting law in Georgia. But that hasn't stopped Republican lawmakers from comparing Georgia's election law to Colorado's system, saying the two aren't so different. But when 11 Alive's Joe Hankey started looking into it a little deeper, he discovered there are quite a few differences.
Governor Brian Kemp appeared on Fox News Monday night as reports came out of the MLB All-Star Game moving from Atlanta to Denver, Colorado.
Georgia has 17 days of in-person early voting, including 2 optional Sundays. Colorado has 15. That's what I'm being told. They also have a photo ID requirement. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
But both of Kemp's claims need context. First, 17 days of early in-person voting in Georgia to Colorado's 15. Unlike Georgia, few in Colorado vote early in person. Under 3% of ballots in Colorado were cast during early in-person voting in November, compared to 67% in Georgia, according to data collected by the U.S. Elections Project. The reason: Colorado is a vote-by-mail state where every registered voter is mailed a ballot. However, they still have an option to vote in person. In Denver County in the 2020 election, more than 94% of voters voted by mail.
Almost everybody votes by mail. We've been doing that for years, way before COVID.
Paul Teske, Dean of the School of Public Affairs at the University of Colorado, Denver, says comparing the number of early voting days does not add up because of Colorado's vote-by-mail system.
Once you're in the system, that's you get a ballot every time, and it's automatic.
Kemp also said both states have photo ID requirement. State laws, though, show both states require ID, but not photo ID. The National Conference of State Legislators calls Colorado's a non-strict ID requirement. One of 16 different IDs is required to vote in person or by mail for the first time, including a utility bill or bank statement. But again, very few vote in person. Georgia's ID requirement for in-person voting was already law and is listed as strict. The ID must be photo ID, and now to apply for an absentee ballot, you must provide an ID number and possibly a photocopy of a photo ID. And another change to Georgia election law that is getting attention deals with ballot drop boxes. How Georgia and Colorado compare, coming up at 6.
The governor isn't budging on this, though. He was back on Fox News again this afternoon, calling the MLB's decision disappointing for Georgians.
I tell you who's getting screwed. It's the little guy. It's the little guy that's a working Georgian, either working in these bars, taverns, at hotels, that now are not going to have guests because the All-Star Game and Major League Baseball made the decision to pull the game out of here because they don't have enough backbone to stand up to these people. I will tell you, the people in Georgia, just average people that don't normally follow politics, they know somebody's lying to them, and it's not me.
While the list of corporations criticizing Georgia's voting law continues to grow, several advocacy groups are also filing federal lawsuits. The state's now facing 4 legal challenges, each with a slightly different focus. We'll break down the big takeaways of each coming up at 6.